Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Real Talk podcast here. Evan Swanson with Guild Mortgage. And today I'm really excited to introduce and interview a person that I had the pleasure of meeting just a couple months ago. We had a great conversation. I was super impressed with her background and the things she's doing in her real estate career. So please welcome Pascha Cain with the agency Portland. Pascha, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Evan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know, one of my goals in interviewing real estate professionals through this channel is to really uncover sort of the person's background and how they got into the real estate profession and really dive into some of the experiences and how that influences how they work and engage with their clients today. And in your case, you had, I think, a couple decades in the sports apparel industry working for Adidas and Nike at a pretty senior level. How many years did you spend in sports apparel?
23.
23 years.
Yep.
And your
Yep.
most recent position was at Adidas in a marketing capacity.
Correct. Yeah. I headed up all of apparel for North America.
Okay, well, that's a big position. One of the things we talked about was when you were bringing a new product to market, you would really try to dive in and figure out how to tell a story so that that story would emotionally connect with the end consumer, which, as we know, storytelling is the most powerful form of marketing. And you are now using that in your real estate practice and helping your clients figure out a way to tell a story about the home that they're trying to buy or sell. So maybe describe a little bit more about that. What does that process look like? And how do you create a story around houses for consumers?
Yeah, no, excellent. So, working at Nike and Adidas, they're very consumer-centric brands. If you think about it, product is a very emotional decision. You are putting another brand's logo on your body, so that means the values of that brand really have to mirror what you believe in.
Hmm.
So it's really getting into the head of the consumer and understanding what's important to them and how to really get those insights that you can emotionally tap into and then reflect in your product. So I feel there's a lot of parallels between that and the house that you live in because that also is a very emotional decision. And I think the art of storytelling can really be amplified to elevate a person's home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it just hearing you describe that reminds me that, for to have that background, right? Adidas and Nike, I'm sure spend a very tall sum of money, informing, educating their leadership around marketing, right? They got to be the best in the world at this because it's a very competitive industry and the stakes are high. Um, you have, in my judgment, a very big competitive advantage because you have that background, and now you're bringing that to single owners of homes, and that professional and corporate background and development is really, I'd imagine, helping you help homeowners really, target a buyer for that home. Do you have any examples of sellers you work with recently and how you kind of help them frame that to find a buyer?
Yeah. I mean, first, I think it's really talking to the seller of why they love their house. Because obviously, when they were a buyer at one time and there was something that emotionally they connected with the house, and if you really can glean that insight, that's mostly going to resonate really well with a future buyer as well. I think mistakes are made when we just think, putting a listing in RLS is going to really connect with the end buyer. We want to be able to showcase the home that the buyer can envision themselves living in. And so, that really comes through your marketing materials, but also how you present the house. Like I'm a huge proponent of, really crafting the right staging and presentation of the home. And that's going to, require some heavy lifting on both the seller's part and also my part in the prep work. So just like at Adidas, we would spend so much time prepping a product for market, and then you'd be really working towards that launch date. And I really see that parallel with listing a home. We
Mm.
put in the hard work, you make sure that those details, whether, you can really change the aesthetic of a home through fresh paint, through some fixture updates that don't cost a lot, and then really connect the staging to the house. I see a lot of times that that staging is mismatched with actually the era of the home or really the style of the home.
Mm,
So I think there is real art to that. And then you really want to make sure that you talk about the attributes that are beyond like the square footage or the number of bedrooms, but really romance the experience of the home. Um, yeah, so I would say that's where I really kind of, have used my skill set. And, it's worked because my listings like last year, we were pending in a couple days over the weekend because we're able to get that draw, get the hook, and then once people come in, they find that that connection with the property.
yeah, well, that's impressive because as we record this in January of 2025, you're referring to 2024, and we saw days on market last year on average were up from the previous years. So if you're still getting that, shorter duration of home sales, that means you're pushing the right buttons. So, for a home seller or a homeowner who has not sold a home ever, or maybe sold a home recently, maybe could you just touch on the basic process? Like if someone called you and said, "Hey, Pasha, like I love everything you're saying. I want to make sure I present my home well so I can sell it, promptly and also sell it hopefully for the right amount." What's the ideal process to work through for a home seller?
Yeah, so for me, I get really into the weeds of understanding the details of the home, just what makes it special. I think, we sometimes see the exterior and the cosmetic, but there's also a lot underneath the home that really, brings value, whether that's the systems or a great roof or the landscaping. So I really want to make sure that I understand all those nuances because that could be really important to a future buyer. I like to visit the home. I like to spend time, how the flow of the home, but also how the seller interacts with the home, or what rooms do they feel the most comfortable with in, because most likely that's what's going to be where the future buyer will also kind of gravitate towards.
Hmm.
Um, we also spend a lot of time then discussing what would be ideal for go to market. So, timing. But also, as much as I'm creative, I'm super analytical because I think bringing a product to market is art and science. So
Hmm.
we really get into the competitive set and do a really robust, deep pricing analysis that's beyond just like what you see at Zillow, because anybody can pull a Zillow price point. Once I understand the house and the nuances and the benefits and the amenities and really the potential, we take that insights and translate it into a pricing proposal. So we almost go to the level of what appraiser does by making price adjustments to our comp. So then it's a really objective point of view, and the seller really can look at the comps and see how we arrived at that price suggestion. And I know it's not just Pasha, just, kind of tweaking a Zillow price point. So, and then it depends on the time of year. We might do an event at the house. I love open houses, but more than an open house, like we want to invite the neighbors to come in and give them a preview because a lot of times neighbors love to pick their neighbors and they feel like they have the little inside track. So we can create also a collaboration with maybe a local coffee shop, a local retailer, but that's where the fun and the magic comes in. It's just the ideating where all those ideas can, we can potentially execute for the seller. So
Got
yeah, it's definitely a magical process. And I think the more that you can get into what makes a house special, you'll find that ideal buyer.
And in that ideal process, it sounds like it starts typically with like a phone call or a conversation, and then it moves into you coming to the home and getting a better feel for it and looking at it. And then seems like there's sort of an art and a science phase where you're doing some of the analytical work, but also the creative work to say, okay, well, how are we going to stage this? How are we going to present it and all that jazz? Like on average, how long does that take? If I were to call you today wanting to sell my home, what could I expect in terms of saying, okay, this is how long we're going to need to prep to get ready to actually put the home on the market?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of really let the seller lead. I mean, sometimes the seller will, need some runway to make those, maybe they want to do some improvements to the house. And that usually takes a little bit more time. But I've also put a house on the market in 2 weeks because you, you just need to go. If the market's
Right.
ready, the house is turnkey and you're lining up photographers and stagers, so you can move pretty quickly. And um, I have a sense of urgency and I have a great, extended team who I see as my team or my vendors who really also flex with a sense of urgency. So yeah, I think it's really what the seller wants and we will, adapt to that.
Case by case. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, now you come to this with a lot of experiences buying and selling real estate, not only here in the United States, but you've purchased homes overseas, correct?
I have, yeah, in
Right. So
Holland.
you've had the experience of buying in other countries. You've bought and sold real estate here. Um, I mean, first off, how have your experiences varied amongst the various homes you've purchased over the years?
Yeah, yeah, it's I would say even though I purchased homes as as a family, leading up to when I made the transition to real estate, I was really just naive about the process and kind of just, this is where you really trust your realtor. And so once I got into real estate, I really saw the value that a realtor is to the transaction, that they're a consultant advisor. And let's be honest, not all realtors really embody that. So I made it my mission to really make sure that I just just came in with the expertise that I could offer advice, but not my opinion, because I'm not there at the end of the day, it's a seller's decision, but I want to be able to have them have all their options available. So, I've taken my knocks buying and selling real estate, really hard ones. But you just kind of then learn what not to do. And it just, for me, is a reminder, that my bar is pretty high on how I want to service my clients.
Okay, good. Great, great. I love that transition because one of the things you mentioned in a previous conversation is customer service is extremely important. I mean, you see yourself as a consultant and advisor, which that means there's expertise that you're bringing to the transaction and to the engagement, but there's also an element of customer service in all this and taking care of the customer's needs. And um I I went through and looked at your Google reviews and they're pretty telling that you live up to this. We couldn't be happier that we partnered with Pascha Cain to help sell our home. There's so many options out there. She came highly recommended, and we are happy that and with a highly reputable agency, Portland. She had super strong marketing, and she was very personalized and gave us exceptional service as well as excellent communication. So, talk about that for a second. This raise the bar theme that you assign to your customer service. What does that mean to you, and how does that manifest in your engagements with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, raise the bar is really kind of nods to what I want to how I want to hold myself, and that's standard as a realtor. I think this is a very large decision, whether you're buying and selling, and very emotional. I take it very seriously. So I want to be an advocate for my client, but be there also just to be a resource and advisor whenever I can. So the raise the bar method is really it talks about like the process we go through to develop a relationship, but also make sure we bring your house to market to get it prepped for the product launch, which is when it goes live on the MLS. So yeah, I really am honored that I have those reviews, but I really see my role as, there to serve. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, give us some. I mean, well, if it's okay,
yeah.
I'll give an example. But one of the other reviewers here mentioned that you actually helped them with a remodel that took
Mhm.
place after they had acquired the home. And anyone who's ever remodeled their home knows that that process can be extremely invasive, extremely cumbersome. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I think, this is where I feel I, do rely on my past experience. One, because I've worked in corporate for so long, I think I've just gotten really used to kind of dealing with adversity really well and navigating it and kind of just remaining like calm and, moving the ball forward. Because if you start getting on emotionally derailed, it doesn't help anybody. So it doesn't mean that I'm not emotionally attached, but I know how to move the ball forward. And I kind of applied that when I started renovating my own homes. Like I did 9 renovations in 2 years,
That's a
and
lot.
it was a lot. It was a lot. And so I have really learned, one, how to work with contractors and kind of also who's in my just like inner circle of contractors, because who I can rely on because they're as good as your brand. I feel, they represent you in that transaction. So, yeah, so we were trusted with the updates and remodel of a home that, was really tired. It was just, been on as a rental for 2 decades, and so it just needed to be refreshed. And we hustled and got it done in three weeks, I believe. And so
Amazing.
I think just because I know how to move the ball forward, and we really focused strategically on what needed to happen, because you don't want to over remodel either. Because I'm conscious that this is the seller's money,
Hmm.
and we want to make sure that they get it back, not and get additional value when we sell the house. So yeah, it was really fun, and I really appreciated the trust that the sellers had in the process, and they were great communicators and collaborators, but just kind of let us do our thing. And that was a house that sold in the weekend as well. Got heaved a
Well,
lot of traffic and went over asking.
well, that's definitely exceptional customer service because dealing with contractors can typically is not the funnest thing you can do, and you can end up spinning your wheels. So I'm sure from the customer's behalf, that was definitely exceptional service. So well done.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about investing because I know you've also, in addition to helping homeowners buy and sell real estate, you also have taken time to learn about investing in real estate. And not all real estate professionals have that competency or expertise. It's something that you and I both share and feel strongly about. So, tell us how you found real estate investing and tell us how you're trying to help others learn from some of the things you can do around buying and selling real estate from an investment standpoint.
Yeah, no, I stepped away actually exactly 4 years ago from my corporate job, and I really just had a kind of open mindset what was going to be the next chapter. And I always say that real estate found me. I just started following some investment groups, and I love that it's an entrepreneurial, approach that really makes you successful in this space. And so, and again, there's a lot of skills and experience I could translate to this new industry. And I loved it. Was just learning, and I just really just made me reflect like how much I hadn't really had involved in just in terms of my own learning. Because when you do something for 23 years, you're just at that point kind of in autopilot. So I was just so energized to learn about investing and real estate and the market. And so I just dove in head first. And it was, like I said, I've taken a lot of knocks, but I also think that's where growth happens. I mean, if you lean into something, there's always going to be failure. And so luckily I failed forward. And I think that's, we could kind of have to expect that when you try something new. But I started doing a lot of like fix and flips. And, I was pretty lucky because I was also during a time when the market was forgiving. So I could make some of those mistakes and still come out. I mean, I came out very well ahead in a lot of my flips. I also learned, the do's and don'ts of partnerships. But then I realized that for me, the value is in buy and hold. So I started getting into short-term rentals and also long-term rentals, so multiplexes. And I think it's no secret that the quickest way to wealth is in real estate. And I was actually just in this very compelling presentation this week. It's like, if you want to beat inflation right now, move your money into real estate because it's outpacing inflation.
Yeah.
And it's basically giving you a tax break, but also a pay raise. So I know not everybody's in the position, but there are some great, oh my gosh, this is your wheelhouse, like if you're a VA or first time homeowner, there's some amazing loan products that you can get in for very, relatively low down payment. And if you want to get wealthy and beat inflation, it's in real estate. And that's not me saying it. This is the expert. So
Yeah.
I get excited to be able to share that. And it's not rocket science. Honestly, if I can do it like and learn it, and I have so much to learn yet. It's just something that's available to anyone. And I think there is this like misperception that it's only for wealthy people. That is absolutely not true. So I just love the idea of this kind of share this idea of like how to help people protect their wealth and grow their wealth and leave a legacy for their family.
I love that. And you're getting me excited, by the way.
I know, right? Let's do
Yeah,
it.
but I think we talked about this when we first had coffee, just how fortunate that we both felt that we had mentors in our life that found us and explained to us how to invest in real estate. And of course, there's learning about something and then there's actually executing. So there's always got to be courage on behalf of the individual to actually take action and do something about it. But a lot of people don't have access to competent mentors that can say, "Hey, this is how the game works. This is how you run pro forma. This is what you look for. This is what you avoid." And what I love about what you're doing now is that the mistakes that you've made, the lessons you have learned not only on behalf of yourself, but for clients who want to use and engage you for this expertise. You can pass that along to them and save them some pretty strong financial mistakes. So I love that. And I just encourage you, and I know it's something that I feel passionate about as well, to continue to tell that story and educate others. So I love that. Now, short-term rentals, this is a space where I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there. And if you go to YouTube or you listen to podcasts, it's almost kind of like the penny stock space where all you ever hear about is the people that hit the lottery and made the big gains. But we know that real life isn't really like that for everybody. And I find that when I'm working with customers that are looking at short-term rentals, Airbnb, things like this, oftentimes I think their expectations initially might be a little bit too rosy. And maybe that's just my own anecdotal experience. But tell us about some of the mistakes and some of the lessons and some of the advice that you would give to someone who's interested in making that first time investment and is interested in the short-term rental space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely was the darling asset category during and coming out of COVID. It seemed like everybody was getting a short-term rental, and there was just, crazy numbers being thrown around. Um, I would say that the ones that are really kind of separating themselves from everybody else are the ones who are really strong operators, have good systems in place, and really are showcasing their product in a really premium way. Because this is where it's really different than listing your house. You want to be able to really focus on the experiences of the home. So if you have a great outdoor space and light up the fire pit and really show how the guests could be, roasting marshmallows around the fire pit. Or if you have a hot tub, make sure it's on and maybe have a couple glasses of wine if that's your clientele. It's really important that you know your avatar in this space because you can't be a generalist, and that's where people fail too. It's like be really specific who you're targeting and then speak to them. So, like for instance, I have a home in wine country. Yes, it's people are going there to taste wine. So I have there's a hot tub, there's an outdoor space, there's premium, like the best wine glasses. Everything is really catering to this experience of enjoying wine country. And that's why I see people not taking the extra step of really creating something more just inviting in their homes. They just think, taking some pictures on their iPhone and putting, a couch that they found on Craigslist in there will get them premium dollars. Think about your own experience and how excited what you get when you go to a Airbnb that connects with you and you feel like, oh my gosh, I would love to live there. So pictures are really essential. And then you have to be in the right location. Like even on the fringe markets are not going to have the same type of potential as being right in the hub. So
Mhm.
this is where it's getting more and more critical. You really have to pick the right locations, know your market in terms of what that rental market is. AirDNA is a great resource
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
understand occupancy and also nightly rates. But there's so many more tools that go a lot more granular to give you those market insights because it's like a hotel. You have to like have a price algorithm, a pricing algorithm that adjusts with the nightly rates and the future, the seasonality, because all of that will affect your price and if you really want to optimize your property. So it is a hospitality business. There's still a lot of like, great upside to it. Both my properties are super high performing because I like operationalize them and put in the right systems. And it's a high touch, I'm part of the brand, so the guests are communicating with me and they love that. So again, it's over communicating, over delivering, and yeah, it's still a great asset class if you're willing to put in the work.
That's awesome. I mean, you just showcased some of your storytelling there, right? Like highlighting the experiences. And it's funny because my family and I happen to be visiting an Airbnb this weekend. My daughter's got a swim meet up in Washington, and we rented a place in up near Tacoma. And now that I think back on the pictures, and part of the reason we chose it is literally they have the pictures set up to demonstrate some of the things you can do with the property to have fun as a family. And so
Yeah.
obviously worked on me, so that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Well, hey, Pasha, again, thank you so much for wrapping up. One question I always like to ask all of my guests, and I'm going to ask you here, is if you could go back and talk to your younger self, either maybe younger in your real estate career, investing career, or maybe just as a general adult and professional, what one piece of advice would you want to pass on to your younger self?
You know, I would love just to tell the younger Pasha, don't put limitations. Really, the world is your oyster. I thought I always had to like check boxes before I was like, ready and able. If I could accomplish this in my career, then I could do it. I think I always had that like when you achieve that milestone mindset. But, it's just it's available to all ages. So go for it if it's in your heart and invest in real estate. When the younger the better, because it really only gets more lucrative for you. Not that that's everything in life, but it definitely makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I would just say have remove those limitations from your mindset.
Awesome. Well, listen, even without that piece of advice, Pasha, I think you're doing pretty well in the world. So congrats on that. And again,
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining us. If someone's watching this and likes what you're saying, how can they get a hold of you to talk to you about the services you offer?
Yeah, they can reach DM me on PNW Pasha. That's my Instagram handle, or reach me at Pasha at pasharealty.com, or my phone number. I'm always available 503-349-1741.
Awesome, Pasha. Thank you so much, Pascha Cain with the agency Portland. Appreciate you joining us here on Real Talk.
Thanks.